Here we are at Pacific Spirit Park, just a few kilometers from the farm site and the Douglas fir site. I'm here with Andy Jacoy, who's going to give us a little bit of the geological background for this area.
This area was described by Jack Armstrong, Dr. Jack Armstrong, Geological Surveys of Canada, the bedrock here is part of the Georgia Strait Formation rocks. These are sedimentary rocks, sandstones and conglomerates, and they're readily observable in southern Gulf Islands, Galliano, Gabriola Island, if we go by there by the ferry, and they come to surface at Kitsilano Beach area. And these rocks were washed down from the coast mountains as the coast mountains started to rise up, and a coastal batholith was formed there. And these were the covering rocks, and here they accumulated in a depression. Not much effect of the bedrock here because this area is mantled by deep deposits of the last glacial ages, and one recognizable deposit is actually a pre-glacial interglacial deposit of the Quadra sands, which are exposed at the Point Grey cliffs. And then of course glaciation laid down a mantle of till. Had we come here about 15,000 years ago, at this spot we would have been standing under 1 mile thick of ice, and this ice created, of course, lots of pressure on the earth crust and depressed the earth crust by about 150 meters. And then when this ice was melting back about 12,000 years ago, sea invaded the area and created what we call glacial marine deposits, and those are very characteristic, and we recognize them, and now they're represented in compacted bands of sand and silt and even clay materials, and these are referred to by geologists as Newton stony clay. But in this area we notice that they're quite sandy, but they are compacted and compressed materials, and those form essentially the sea horizon of the soils in this area. And then of course as the land started to rise, beach deposits were created in the area, and water sorted out the superficial soils, and came to this rather mixed loamy sand and sandy loam textured soils which we recognize in this area.
In the 1880s, in addition to the logging that was selectively taking place, there were also several great fires that were started. After the fires and the logging, this site was naturally regenerated, but then in 1922 was logged again. After that, Alder came in on this site. In the 40s, this site was again logged to theoretically be used for housing, but once again the site was not used, and once again Alder came into this site. What effects did the periodic clearing have on this site, Andy?
Well, if you look at areas which were logged at the time you mentioned, there are remnants of large stumps, but here we don't see those large stumps, and of course many of the huge logs were left in the forest. But here the periodic destruction removed that organic debris, and these organic debris stumps and logs used to serve as nurse logs for the regrowth of the climatic forest, which would be a coniferous forest. And since the substrate is not available, this area is just turned into a deciduous forest in a pioneer stage, but of course now it's degrading because the trees reached maturity and even over mature, and slowly they're breaking down. And well, hopefully eventually some of the original forest could return in here if this area would be kept as a spirit park and people would enjoy the natural conditions which we like to see.
Are there any vegetative indicators of that Douglas fir or coniferous forest still here in this alder forest?
Yes, there's one species here which is readily available, sword fern, and when the virgin forest was standing here, huge Douglas firs and red cedars, between the large trees, the sword fern was readily available, and in this area foresters would refer to this site as a sword fern Douglas fir site. And of course now we don't see Douglas fir, but we still see the sword fern.
This forest looks quite lush. Can you tell me about some of the vegetation here, Andy?
Well, of course, the vegetation is a result of our climate, which is the maritime, humid climate, and it promotes, of course, rapid growth of pioneer species. Red alder is one of them, which was pioneer, and then, of course, all the shrubs along here are salmonberry, and this shrub-like maple, vine maple is in here, and a well-established tree is bitter cherry, and around here, of course, we see another pioneer, a largest tree species here, the black cottonwood. We have several other shrub species here, elderberry and mountain ash and blackberries, even a bit of a salal, but a salal would be more representative of drier areas. This area is quite moist. With the ferns, of course, we have lady fern and spiny wood fern as well, but they're not in a picture now. This would be about a short description of the shrubs.
Talking about the trees again, I found this, I believe it's an alder root when I was digging the pit. Can you tell me some about alder? What do you know about it, and what's interesting about alder roots?
The alder is known to be a nitrogen fixer in its pioneer stage. So it provides essentially what ecologists call soil amelioration, and then the nitrogen fixing character is associated with the bacteria. I only know the scientific name of it, Actinomycetes alni, and this forms these root nodules on the alder roots.
Excellent. What else about alder trees are significant?
The alders are pioneer species, and usually in the coastal areas coming after fire or disturbance and windfall, especially if the organic accumulation is lacking in the soil. They need clear mineral soil for their establishment.
Given that alder trees are short-lived tree species and they're nearing their maximum age, what management choices would you make for this site, considering that the dominant tree here is nearing its maximum lifespan?